think I'm recording. Hope I'm recording. Welcome back for chapter 5 of the Book of Mormon. And I guess I should have been a little more prepared, but here we go. And it came to pass that after we had come down into the wilderness unto our father, he was filled with joy, and also my mother Sariah was exceedingly glad, for she truly had mourned because of us. What mortal mother wouldn't mourn? It has nothing to do with her lack of faith or her lack of righteousness. She's a mother, and her sons are gone, and she knows where they went. For she had supposed that we had perished in the wilderness, and she also had complained against my father, telling him that he was a visionary man, saying, Behold, thou hast led us forth from the land of our inheritance, and my sons are no more, and we perish in the wilderness. And after this manner of language had my mother complained against my father. And it had come to pass that my father spake unto her, saying, I know that I am a visionary man, for if I had not seen the things of God in a vision, I should not have known the goodness of God. And again, this is the most important thing that a mortal could know, the goodness of God, because otherwise everything else is going to be too hard, and everything else sort of loses meaning or perspective. But had tarried at Jerusalem, and had perished with my brethren. But behold, I have obtained a land of promise, in the which things I do rejoice. Yea, and I know that the Lord will deliver my sons out of the hands of Laban, and bring them down again unto us in the wilderness. And again, this is Lehi, for whatever reason. Was this a spiritual gift? Whatever reason there was, but he had a sure knowledge of things. He was shown things, and he received information that poor Sariah did not have, and she just had to trust that Lehi knew. So the Lord will deliver my sons out of the hands of Laban, and bring them down again unto us in the wilderness. And after this manner of language did my father Lehi comfort my mother Sariah concerning us, while we journeyed in the wilderness up to the land of Jerusalem to obtain the record of Jews. And here this should have said how my father, after this manner of language, did my father Lehi try to comfort my mother, but he wasn't able really to comfort her, because in verse 7 we read, and when we had returned to the tent of my father, behold, their joy was full, and my mother was comforted. So she was really not comforted until her boys were back, and that makes perfect sense to me. There's only so much a heart can take, and especially the heart of a mother, and how terrifying to be alone, really, without the men in the group, and just her husband and her daughters. And it must have been pretty scary to be out there all by themselves and thinking that our sons are gone. What if they don't return? We're just going to be this band of women wandering around. And so it was probably really hard. Whatever she was going through is totally understandable. But anyway, and she spake, saying, Now I know. Now I know. And this is so interesting, because she was no different from Laman and Lemuel. She didn't know until then. Now I know of a surety that the Lord hath commanded my husband to flee into the wilderness. Yea, and I also know of a surety that the Lord hath protected my sons, and delivered them out of the hands of Laban. And just before I go on here, the one thing I want to reiterate, yes, she didn't know Laman and Lemuel, but she did not lose faith or knowledge in the people she knew, and she knew Lehi, and so she must have known the kind of man he was, and trusted in the intentions of his heart, which was to do good by his family. And so she was able to go on the faith that she had in their relationship. And that's why, trying to be there for another person through, good times and bad, is so important, because there's going to be plenty of those in life. And if you're not there for another person, when times are really bad, then it just shows that your relationship would not weather anything really. And that this shows us the strength of Lehi's and Sariah's marriage, that she would leave everything and she would follow him into the wilderness, not even knowing that this was really a sure thing of the Lord. And it wasn't until her sons returned when she saw the absolute man. She knew Laban just as well as Lehi knew Laban. So she thought, I don't even know if my sons will survive Laban, let alone return. So she had good reason, logically to fear and all that. So going on. So she's talking about her son. They protected my sons. And listen to how she's talking, because she's not just saying, Nephi, look at your brother Nephi, the way Lehi does. She talks totally different. Hath protected my sons and delivered them out of the hands of Laban, and given them power whereby they could accomplish the thing which the Lord hath commanded them. And after this manner of language did she speak. So she speaks very differently from Lehi, because she includes all her sons. And being their mother, she probably, knew intuitively, already got word that Nephi had a heavy hand in accomplishing all this. Nevertheless, she loved all her boys. And so I just love the good example that she is of a righteous mother, that her love is no different one to the other, whether you are the child that is floundering or you are the child that is thriving. The good mother loves them both the same and compliments them both the same for the things that they can and do achieve. So a beautiful example of Sariah's parenting skills. And it came to pass that they did rejoice exceedingly, and did offer sacrifice and burnt offerings unto the Lord, and they gave thanks unto the God of Israel. And after they had given thanks unto the God of Israel, my father Lehi took the records, which are engraven upon the plates of brass, and he did search them from the beginning. So he's going on an adventure here. And he beheld that they did contain the 5 books of Moses, which gave an account of the creation of the world, and also of Adam and Eve, who were our first parents, and also a record of the Jews from the beginning, even down to the commencement of the reign of Zedekiah, king of Judah, and also the prophecies of the holy prophets from the beginning, even down to the commencement of the reign of Zedekiah, and also many prophecies which have been spoken by the mouth of Jeremiah, because it wasn't done with Jeremiah times yet. And it came to pass that my father Lehi also found upon the plates of brass a genealogy of his fathers. So wherefore he knew that he was a descendant of Joseph. So this shows that Lehi never was allowed to go through these plates before. So now he's learning about his genealogy, and he's finding out where he comes from. Even though he must have known he was related to Laban, that much he knew. I mean, he knew who was a cousin, but he didn't know everything. And so it gives you a real interesting clue, because Lehi wasn't in the uneducated group. For whatever reason, he was not given these records. So you just wonder how he fit into the hierarchy of the church at the time. Was he just some dude that talked to God and said, this is nuts, what is happening to my city, to my world, to my country, what's going on? Was he just some man that had an excellent relationship with God, and then he said, I know I'm related to this guy over here, this bigwig Laban, and he's got the record. So you just wonder about Lehi. This gives you pause, because he never was able to search those records before. Yea, even that Joseph, who was the son of Jacob, who was sold into Egypt, and who was preserved by the hand of the Lord, that he might preserve his father Jacob and all his household from perishing with famine. So poor Joseph had to go to prison just so his family wouldn't die. For years he went. And they were also led out of captivity and out of the land of Egypt by that same God who had preserved them. And thus my father Lehi did discover, again, we're seeing, he did discover the genealogy of his fathers. So again, this is showing, this is news to him. And Laban also was a descendant of Joseph, wherefore he and his fathers had kept the records. So it was Laban's fathers that had kept, his generations. These plates had been in his family apparently for generations. And so this is a really incredible treasure to have taken from another person, a personal item like this. But as we said, and as Lehi learned, the city was going to be destroyed. And maybe Laban would have died one way or another, but those records could not have fallen into the wrong hands and be destroyed. And so great were the promises regarding these records, or so great were the importance of these records, someone having all the scriptures from the beginning, that someone was willing to die for that. Or someone, sorry, Laban, he wasn't willing to die for that. Someone had to die for that, was what I meant to say. And now when my father saw these things, he was filled with the Spirit and began to prophesy concerning his seed, that these plates of brass should go forth unto all nations, kindreds, tongues, and people who were of his seed. Wherefore he said that these plates of brass should never perish, neither should they be dimmed any more by time. And he prophesied many things concerning his seed. And it came to pass that thus far I and my father had kept the commandments wherewith the Lord had commanded us. I don't know. This just cracks me up, this verse, for some reason. It's kind of like, so far we're 100% in this class. We're like in the top percentile right here. This is what it sounds like to me. Like, no one needs to hear your grade, Nephi. We're sure you're an A student. Let's continue the story. I don't know. That just cracks me up. And we had obtained the records which the Lord had commanded us, and searched them, and found that they were desirable, yea, even of great worth unto us, inasmuch that we could preserve the commandments of the Lord unto our children. And again, there are so many times when we're studying the Book of Mormon and we just focus on the same things over and over again. But I just want us to pause here and just picture this scene. If I were a movie maker, this would be one of my key scenes. Lehi and Nephi. Lehi's sitting at a low table like I am, and he has the plates out, and Nephi's leaning over his shoulder, and they're going through these plates, and they're like, wow, we had no idea what we were stealing, We lucked out, and, and they're like high-fiving each other because it was such an amazing get. And then they flip the page and there's a big blood stain. Oh yeah, we had to kill a man for these. And who wiped it away? Was it Lehi? Because he realized what his son had to do for him and the Lord? Or was it Nephi? Because it hurt to have to do that. And you just wonder how that went down and who wiped the blood off those plates. If such a scene could exist. Because we talk about these events like they're nothing, and yet Nephi had to kill a man, and whatever qualities he had, of greed or being power hungry or snob, whatever else it was, he didn't deserve to die. That was a harsh sentence for having inherited those plates and having been, stubborn and unable to feel the promptings of God. If he was in touch with God and had that relationship, he'd feel something when he was asked to do this, or he would have been given a dream or a warning. Something would, he would have been prepared for this request, but he was distant from such things. And it is sad that this had to happen. And it is sad that Nephi had to kill someone, had to shed blood for these things. And you wonder how Nephi processed this, just as you think of Moses. Moses killed an Egyptian, which turned him into a fugitive. But having him on the run was where God needed him, because apparently he wasn't getting through to him when Moses was in the palace. Who'd want to leave that? And it was only a murder that he committed that threw him out there. And how surprised Moses must have been when God started to talk to him again. He must have thought, this is it. My life is over. Palace is gone, inheritance over. I can't even say my name. I didn't know my name anyway. He must have just thought his life was completely over. And how surprised he must have been when God started to talk to him, a fugitive from murder. And so again, and the Book of Mormon teaches us that faith is not just a belief in things we can't see. It is a huge, huge belief in ourselves. It is a huge belief in the divinity of our spirit. It is having a huge belief that we are more than meets the eye, and that we existed before we were born, and that we were going to exist after we die. And then this life here is such a tiny blip, but most of us have given it our all. And our all, of course, is we're mortal. We're mortal. We're going to fail, and we're going to make mistakes, and we're going to be desperately sad sometimes and super joyous at times. But I mean, it's the ups and downs of our existence. We're going to feel insulted, and we're going to insult others. We're all imperfect, and we all make mistakes. But those who are the real giants among us are those who know who they are and really believe that in others, that we're children of God, and that no matter what we do or what is done to us, it does not decrease the preciousness and the heritage, the divine heritage of our spirit and our true identity. And so this scene of them discussing these plates and wondering at them and, knowing what happened to get them always moves me. Wherefore it was wisdom in the Lord that we should carry them with us as we journeyed into the wilderness towards the land of promise. So again, in the end, he finally learns this lesson. All my good ideas and all my rationalizations are, it's just wisdom in the Lord. That's what I need to rely on, that wisdom in the Lord. I don't even know. He didn't know the full picture, neither did Lehi, why it was so important that this had to happen. And I'm sure there was a spiritual fretting, especially for Nephi, over him having to kill a man. And I'm sure that might have been something that would have been hard to process if he was human. Just like Sariah had a hard time processing her sons being gone because she was a human. So you just are so, I'm astounded at the parts that we miss in the Book of Mormon as we go by, not realizing how many people do have to deal with having killed someone. Many people have served in the military or whatever, if they've been in tragic situations, and not really stopping to ponder that the atonement covers this too. The atonement covers what we can't do for ourselves. And so that's why it's so important to have that relationship with God, because it isn't about pleasing him so much as pleasing him by believing that he loves us. This one preacher just said, and I'll end with this, he said, on Judgment Day, I'm convinced that God will ask us one question and one question only. Did you believe that I loved you? Do you believe that I love you? And if that's the only question he asked, how much work most of us have to do to get there, to really believe, no matter what happens to us, no matter what we do, to just get up, keep trying. The righteous man is not someone who never falls. It's someone who falls 7 times and gets up again, and you get up again and again. So again, I just want to end this chapter with what I always say: feel the love, look for the love. That's always a sign of Christ's disciples. And if you do not feel loved where you are in the wrong place. And I will see you tomorrow.